Hello and welcome to Inside the Americas. Coming up on today's show, we meet the judge on a crusade to eradicate corruption in Brazil. Mexicans launch an anti-Donald Trump campaign on social media. And we find out how llama meat has made it onto the menu in Bolivia. Thanks for joining us. Political turmoil in Brazil rages on with a giant corruption scandal engulfing the current president and her predecessor. Earlier this month, the former leader, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, was sworn in as a cabinet minister. Not long after, his appointment was blocked. The situation seems to change by the hour. Oliver Farry reports now on the judge who's become the high-profile face of the campaign to stamp out corruption.
Brazilians are in the streets both in support of and protesting against the government. Some have also turned out to give thanks to one particular judge, one of the most famous in the country, Sergio Moro.
I have come out because Brazilians can't take it anymore. We have taken to the streets to rid ourselves of this corruption.
Sergio Moro was on a crusade to eradicate corruption. For the past few months, the federal judge has been investigating an embezzlement and money laundering scandal that has embroiled several large construction firms and also the ruling Workers' Party. Named Operation Car Wash, Judge Moro's investigation has swooped on some 20 company directors, members of parliament and ministers. His opponents have accused him of excessive detention, pressurising people to denounce others and also manipulation of the media. Now, the head of state, Dilma Rousseff, and her predecessor, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, are being targeted. Former President Lula is suspected of corruption and money laundering. In early March, he was arrested in front of TV cameras, an arrest many criticised as humiliating, but such is Judge Moro's way of doing things.
The guys who arrested me wanted to kill the old snake, but they only hit me on the tail, not on the head.
10 days later, Lula had returned to government, named Minister of State, thus acquiring parliamentary privilege. Some see it as a ruse to escape justice, a theory fuelled by this telephone conversation between the current president and Lula.
Okay, I've sent Bessias to you with the document, to be used only if needed, meaning at the swearing in. Got that?
Yeah, got it.
An explosive recording that the judge made public. Moro says people need to know what their leaders are getting up to, even when they try to act in secret. The question now is whether Lula can continue as minister. The Federal Supreme Court is due to decide by the end of the month. In the meantime, the former president faces the regular justice system, meaning Judge Moro himself.
There were smiles, awkward handshakes, lively debates and a baseball game. Barack Obama's 3-day visit to Cuba wrapped up on Tuesday. It was the first by a US president in almost 90 years. He finished his tour with a speech declaring the end to the last remnant of the Cold War in the Americas. The address sparked rare discussions about democracy on the streets of Havana. France 24's Philip Crowther has been speaking to locals.
American soft power has landed in Cuba, seeking a historic reconciliation.
Good job. Bien trabajo.
That includes the stars of American baseball in Havana to impart their knowledge on young Cubans.
They teach me how to play.
Kids are great. We're having a great time. Get to play baseball in Cuba. It's awesome.
A baseball throwaway. The improbable meeting between Presidents Castro and Obama. A moment captured by American tourists. The normalization made it possible. They are getting to know their neighbors for the very first time.
So proud to see this firsthand.
I feel proud to have a president that I can feel is a role model, and to show the kids that it's about being the bigger person and reaching out.
On this island, isolated for such a long time from the United States, the visit of President Obama has reached every living room. Cubans are getting used to this dramatic change. The imperialist foe might be no more.
So far, they've always told the truth. Always. And Fidel Castro always had a saying, which is, I say it like it is.
When the cameras are turned off, there are Cubans who tell us they are frustrated with the one-party system and the one voice that is beamed into their living rooms via state television, the only way for most Cubans to follow President Obama's visit. One man seeks out the cameras just as Obama and Castro are meeting. He comes, or has he been sent, to give his point of view.
There is freedom of expression, but people are afraid. They think something might happen to them. But I think there's freedom of expression, not just because of Obama. Look at me. I protest like this and nothing happens to me.
This Sunday, dozens of dissidents and protesters were arrested in central Havana.
A group of Mexican senators are starting a social media campaign against the Republican frontrunner Donald Trump, who says he plans to wall off the border with Mexico if he becomes president. They're encouraging citizens to post messages in defence of their country and against the negative comments the politician has made about Mexicans throughout his campaign. Oliver Farry has more.
Stung by Donald Trump's repeated verbal attacks on Mexico, parliamentarians south of the border are calling for a sustained campaign against the Republican presidential frontrunner, who they say is a direct threat. Senate leader Miguel Barbosa made the call in a news conference.
We
call on members of the Senate, through all possible media, to conduct a campaign against Donald Trump for his actions and statements directed at Mexicans, which aim to foment hatred and division.
Using the hashtag #MXContraTrump, the campaign aims to stymie the billionaire reality TV star in his race for the White House. Senate leader Barbosa has also recorded a promotional video to get the word out. He says it's time for Mexicans to strike back.
Donald Trump is a provocateur, a bully, a demagogue, an ignoramus, a madman, and a liar. So we must not remain silent and let this perception he spreads take root.
Trump has made several inflammatory comments throughout his presidential campaign that have taken aim at various groups, including Muslims, African Americans and women. But the first group to come under fire were Mexicans in June last year.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
The Republican presidential hopeful has said he will extend the wall at the Mexican border to keep immigrants out and make Mexico pay for it. That has raised hackles in Mexico, with former President Vicente Fox among those slamming Trump. Some Mexicans have used Trump as a figure of derision, such as in this ad for TV coverage of a Mexico-USA football game last November.
The American dream is dead.
But Miguel Barbosa says Mexico's government should have spoken out louder last year. Mexicans will be watching very closely November's election to the north, in a country that's their largest trading partner.
And in the latest news, in the race for the White House, Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Hillary Clinton swept to victory in the Arizona primaries on Tuesday. But their rivals scooped wins elsewhere. Bernie Sanders blunted Clinton's momentum in Utah and Idaho, while Texan Senator Ted Cruz snatched victory from Trump in the Utah caucuses. Now, they're better known for their wool and for ferrying things up and down rocky terrain, but llamas are fast becoming the dish of the day in Bolivia. Long consumed in rural parts of the country, the indigenous animals are low in fat and high in protein, perfect for a new generation of chefs putting local ingredients back on the menu.
In the small town of Turco, Bolivia, these indigenous residents are a key part of the local economy. Herman couldn't survive without the money he earns raising llamas. Like his father, he sells the animals for their meat, and business has been slowly growing.
Without these camelids, I don't think we'd be here.
we would already have migrated to other regions to look for work. Getting the word out that llama meat is good, however, there's hope that the price will go up.
About 100 animals are killed every day in this slaughterhouse. The meat goes exclusively to the national market and costs less than €3 a kilo. It can also be dried.
Before, llama meat wasn't appreciated. I remember about 30 years ago we couldn't sell it openly in La Paz. We had to hide it. People thought it was a wild meat, that it wasn't edible.
Over time, local concerns about llama meat have gradually decreased. At this market in Oruro, the capital of the region, there are plenty of llama enthusiasts, prizing the meat because it's low in fat and high in protein.
It's natural. There are no chemical products in it. The animals are raised in the countryside. I eat it all the time.
National consumption of llama meat remains marginal, at less than a kilo per year per resident. Nevertheless, the gastronomical newcomer has made it onto the menus of luxury restaurants in Bolivia. Gusto in La Paz offers a llama tartar on the menu, accompanied by cassava, capers and chamomile.
For me, the taste is like a combination of veal and wild game. It's both very subtle, but finishes with a wild touch and a taste of blood. It gives a unique character to the meat.
In Turco, a new slaughterhouse is in the works which will meet international export standards, meaning that, like quinoa, llama meat could one day become a Bolivian delicacy celebrated around the world.
Thanks for joining us for this Inside the Americas. See you next week for all the news from north to south.